Today I'm going to teach you one of the most important jazz piano chord voicings for playing modern music. They're called quartal voicings or sometimes fourth voicings, and they get a reputation for being challenging and intimidating, but that's not really the case. In fact, I think they're actually one of the easiest voicings to learn, and they sound incredible. These voicings have kind of a reputation for being advanced or intimidating or theoretical, but in fact, they're none of those things. The truth is that these voicings are actually easier to learn than other ones we may have learned earlier in our journey. Like if we were playing Arulda's voicings, we have to remember a formula, 3, 7, 9, 5, in order to put those together and translate it around to remember A and B voicings. With quartal voicings, we don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Instead, we just have one shape. And we move that shape around the piano to create the harmony. All right, so play along with me here, starting with an F in the pinky of our right hand. All right, underneath that, we're gonna add a fourth below it. That's a C. And underneath that, we're gonna add another fourth. That would be G. Now on our left hand, you got the pattern, another fourth. That's D. And one more, a fourth, A. I don't want you to worry at all about what this chord is just yet. We're going to talk about that in a second. What we're really focused on is this shape. And notice how when we move this shape around, F, E, E flat, D, D flat, C, it's the same shape. They all kind of feel similar in terms of your hand shape. Now, of course, we want to practice all of these all the way down the keyboard so that we can pull any of them out when we need to. The goal is that our hands get to know these shapes really well. So all we have to do is think about what the top note is, and the rest of it will kind of take care of itself. Now there is an aspect to this that gets people tripped up, and I want to show you a little bit of a trick that makes all of that easier. All right, so let's take our hands off the keyboard for a second. What I want you to do is look at this chord in your mind's eye. Like I'm visualizing the keyboard and I can see each of the notes of this chord light up, right? F, C, G, D, A, stacked a fourth apart. Now you might notice on this F, all of our notes are white. And if we go to G flat, all of our notes are black. But that's not going to be true for all of our chords, of course. But what is going to happen is that the white notes and black notes are going to be clustered together. We'll have all the white notes on top, all the black notes on the bottom, for example, or the other way around. And so what we need to learn to identify is where is the pivot point? Where in the middle of this chord do we switch from white notes to black notes? If you can do that, visualizing these chords will help you so much. And actually, there's a really simple rule to find this. We're going to look for either a B natural or a B flat. When we encounter those notes, the ones that come after it, going down, are going to switch colors. So let's try it. Let's put an E on top. When we come down a fourth, we get B. B is that pivot note we just mentioned, right? So we know that after this B going down, we're gonna get a black note. So that's gonna be F sharp. And now we can just continue. We know the rest of the notes are gonna be black because they're clustered white on the top and black on the bottom. Let's do the next one, E flat. Come down a fourth. There's our B flat, right? That B flat is our pivot. It's gonna switch, in this case, from black to white. So we go down to F, and the rest are all white. Black notes on top, white notes on the bottom. So now that we've got these shapes locked in, how do we know what chords we're actually playing? How do we put these into the context of a tune? Well, that's what we're gonna talk about next. It's really interesting how flexible these are. What's so interesting about these quartal voicings is that we spell them top down. Right, so much of the music theory that we learn is about building chords from the bottom up, root 3, 5, 7. But that's not true with these fourths voicings. We're just gonna pick a note, put it on top, and then we're gonna trust that our hand shape and that little visualization trip helps us find all the notes. So the way that we map these voicings to the chords is by the way that we think about that top note. The most obvious one to start with is a major chord where we put the root on top. So if we're thinking about F on our top note, we can think about this shape as being F major. The other way you could think about this is by thinking about it with the fifth on top. So if we want to play F major, we're going to think, what's the fifth of F? C. And we're going to play our shape there over C. So that's another voicing for F major. Both of those are so pretty. Now for minor chords, we're going to do this same thing, but we're going to put the third of that chord on top. So a minor chord, F minor, our third is A flat, right? The minor third. So we put A flat on top and we come right down our shape. Now we only have one of these options for minor chords, which is honestly kind of a problem. When it comes to voice leading, we want to have different options so we can move smoothly between the chords, but with only one option, it gets to be a problem. But don't worry, I'm going to give you a solution to solve all that in just a minute. Now you notice both of our major and our minor voicings use the exact same shape. They're all playing the same note. And because of that, these chords are a little bit ambiguous sounding, but also flexible, right? So this F major chord with the F on top could also be the B flat major chord with its fifth on top, right? Its fifth is F, and we make the same shape. And likewise, this could be D minor, right? The third of D minor is F, and we could think of that as D minor. All that changes is how we think about the function of the top note. Now this voicing where we stack perfect fourths all the way down does not work for dominant chords because dominant chords are kind of defined by the sound of the tritone. The 3 and 7 of a dominant chord is what makes it have that dominant chordness to it, right? You cannot have a dominant chord without the 3 and 7 being a tritone. Lucky for us, it's a real easy shift to make. We're gonna think about our dominant chords just like a major chord, so like F major. And you notice here, we already have the third. Here, what we're missing is the seventh, the E flat, and it's only one note away. So in our version with the root on top, we're gonna just take the top note in our left hand and go up a half step. And that gives us that tritone. So that's one way to think about these dominant chords, but if you've been playing jazz a little bit and you know how to find your shell voicings, there's a shortcut to find this even faster, which is just to start with your left hand and think about the shell voicing. So for F7, our shell voicing is 3 and 7. And then in our right hand, we're gonna keep the quartal voicings exactly as we have them. So here I've got it with the root on top and the shell voicing in my left hand. Or I can do the opposite. I can put the fifth on top and the shell voicing in my left hand. You can think about this whichever way is more intuitive for you, but this version with the shell voicings is what I do. These 5 different voicings we learned, 2 majors, 1 minor, 2 dominants. I learned first from this book by Frank Mantooth called Voicings for Jazz Keyboard, which I cannot recommend enough. Frank calls these his generic voicings. I think they're literally chapter 1 of this book, and he builds on them in some really interesting ways. I'm not going to go into those because you should go buy his book. Now, as grateful as I am for this book from Frank Mantooth, there is one really substantial problem with these generic voicings that we have to find a solution to, and that is that there's only one minor chord option. As we're comping using these chords, when we go from chord to chord, we want to have nice, smooth voice leading between them. I mean, we want to move from one chord to another one that's nearby. But when we only have one option to choose from, sometimes you have no choice but to make a rather large, awkward leap. And this is a problem we can solve with a little hat tip to our friend Bill Evans. And this is what we call a so what voicing. It was made famous by Bill Evans on the tune So What with the Miles Davis Quintet. And it's actually the same voicing we've just been playing, but again, with just one tiny tweak. So let's start with our F major chord with the F on top. And the only tweak we're gonna make is we're gonna change our top note. We're gonna lower it a half step to E. Now this is still an F major chord. Oh, but it's so colorful. So nice, right? It's such a difference to put a colorful note on top, like that major 7th instead of the root or the 5th. Oh, sounds so nice. This so what voicing, right, has the major 3rd on top, and just so happens that our right hand is playing a major triad, C, E, G. Now it's in 2nd inversion, right? It's got the 5th on the bottom. But it's kind of helpful if you've got the muscle memory from playing triads and moving them around. You can think that this is like a C major triad in my right hand, B major, B flat, A flat. Just like we did with the other voicings, we can find other uses for this same shape by thinking about the top note in different ways. So we can take this F major shape, look at the top note, and say, what if we built that same shape but from the 3rd of F major? We end up with this, with A on the top. And for a minor chord, we can do the same thing. We're just going to think about the 5th of the chord. So if we want to play an F minor chord, the 5th is C. We come down a major 3rd, that's A flat, and then the rest is all 4ths. So now we have 2 options for our minor 7th chords, which fixes that problem we had earlier about not having options for good voice leading. When it comes to dominant chords, though, we don't really use these so what voicings at all. Instead, we use a completely different idea called upper structures, and I have a video entirely about that that's linked at the end of this one. Let's put this into a real song. In fact, I'm going to put it in rhythm changes in B flat. That way you can play hundreds of songs. And I'm going to go kind of quick through this because I've already told you how to find every chord that I'm about to use. You can go back and reference those if you need to. All right, B flat major with the F on top. G7. It's got the G on top. Remember, our dominants have that special tritone on the bottom. For C minor, I'm going to do the so what voicing with the 5th on top, and then back to F7 with the root on top. B flat major, G dominant to C dominant. I'm going to use that with the 5th on top because the voice leading is so nice. And then F7 with the F on top. Back to B flat. Now E7, I'm going to put the E on top. E flat major 7 is going to be with the E flat on top. And then A flat 7, we can also put the E flat on top. We just got to switch to our left hand to put that tritone in there. And then for C7, put the root on top. F7 with the 5th on top, still the same C to B flat. Then we just side slip it, B7. And then we repeat the whole thing. B flat major. Just move one note to get to B flat dominant. E flat major. And just move one note to get to A flat dominant. C7 with the C on top. F7 with the C on top to B flat. Now going into the B section, they're all dominant chords. So let's put the root on top of the D7. To G7, also with the D on top. To C7 with the C on top. To F7 with the F with the C on top. And then we're basically recapping the A section. B flat, G, C minor, to F, B flat, G, C dominant, F7, B flat major to dominant, E flat, A7, C, F. So these new voicings let you go through and play just about any song that you want to and get a little bit of that Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea flavor in it. Now remember when I told you there was so much more you could do with those dominant chords? Well, I've put together a video entirely on that. It's right here called The Simplest Way to Play Complex Jazz Chords. I hope you will check it out next.